glitches, but I'll fix that later. As long as it's recording, we're good to go. All right. Hey there, Golfcast Nation. This is Brian Bailie here, bringing you another episode, or hopefully we are, of Between the Ears here. We have Dr. Mike Grevlos. Mike, how are you doing? How about yourself, Chris? And of course, we have Chris George with us. Chris, how are you today?
I am fantastic.
And I do have, again, my Guinness Zero. I almost made a Guinness Old Fashioned today. I was that close to making it maybe next week. We'll see. I was running out of time. I was bad clock management. I'm totally hooked in this stupid TV show called The Clarkson Farm. Have you seen this?
No.
It's on Amazon Prime. It's literally the fun. This show makes me laugh every evening to watch. I mean, Gavin, my son, and I were laughing so hard 3 nights ago. Like, I have not sat in front of a TV show and laughed that hard. So it's a British guy. It's called The Clarkson Farm. He's a Motor Trend kind of guy. He writes in the UK for cars, and he bought a farm, didn't do anything with it. The guy that was running the farm quit, so he comes back to take over the farm with no farming experience, and it's just him learning to be a farmer. It's very funny. It's very funny. Anyways, enough of that stuff. That keeps me busy at night. But let's go ahead and kick off the show today. We're going to talk about what kind of happened over the last couple weeks on the PGA Tour and how this will translate to a lot of players' games. Because now this was happening at the highest levels for a whole lot of money, but a lot of the situations we saw, I see at the collegiate level, definitely see it at the member. You might even see it at the club championship. And we'll kind of start with the U.S. Open, where Spaun came out of nowhere. But the last day, the first 5 holes, he had fives. So they stopped showing them. So kind of Mike and Chris will start this off with is when you're in a tournament situation and things, maybe not even things aren't going well, but the score is not going well, how and what can happen for you to right the ship? So we'll let you jump in there. So, all of a sudden I had goals of something was going to happen today. First 3 to 4 holes, the golf gods are telling me different. What can I do to right that ship? Yeah. Yeah. He did, didn't he? Yeah. 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 No, I like that. And I know a lot of times we did this with our college players, is especially our better players. So, collegiately, you would have five players that go out. One, twos are usually your studs. Nobody can challenge them. Three, four, five, it gets a little more hectic, right? So our ones and twos, we would always create scenario games because nobody was beating them inside the team. They would go to head or whatever, but nobody was really going to challenge them inside the team. So I don't even know if this is right, Mike. We might have sabotaged them, but we might have been savants and just not known it. We'd go and they'd have four holes left. And we'd walk up and go, "All right, you're two to win the tournament." Like, so they have four holes left. They've been just kind of cruising along, and all of a sudden we just launched a scenario of this just happened. Or you're up three, but the person just, you're up three with five to go, and then after another hole or two, they just posted the score, and now it's one. So they thought they were up this big lead, and then we'd walk up to them a hole and a half later and go, "Oh God, the lead's just gone." Like, so we love to put our better players in goofy scenarios and just say, "Hey, you've got to be prepared for this. You've got to be prepared for everything to change, and how are you?" And then for us as coaches, how did you react, and kind of what you could learn from that? Would that be something a player could implement, or did we just sabotage our players for years? Yeah, those are we practice time at home. Yeah. No, no, not on the golf course. No, no. No, no, during the tournament, we wouldn't do that, but what we try to do is get them to, because our philosophy was this will happen to you at some point. Like, you're gonna be cruising and think everything's going well, and you think you got this baby wrapped up, and then someone's gonna look, and then you're gonna see a leaderboard and be like, "It's gone." Or, and then again, for us, it was just like, how would you react? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. If not, I was gonna break out a list and apologize to every single one of them I ever did that to. No. How about yourself, Chris? What are your thoughts on JJ?
Yeah, I think JJ did a great job. I think how he responded initially to how his ball hit the flagstick was really interesting for me. And, I don't know him. I don't know how he actually kind of went through the process of resolving that mentally and how he processed that with his caddy during the round. But to me, when I was watching it, I certainly reflected on it to feel like a player that has that happen to him when he hits a shot, he's been preparing for an event and rising quite a bit from a ball striking standpoint. And, a response may have been potentially that, wow, my ball striking's so good that I hit a US Open stick basically that's, an inch wide because it's a little bit bigger than a tour stick in the US Open. Um, and yeah, I got a bad break, but my dispersion and my yardage control is so good that I'm knocking down flag sticks. And yeah, I got a bad break, but I am looking forward to the rest of this round because I'm on point and I'm ready to roll.
Yeah. And then it, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, possibly. I mean, he really dealt with that adversity very well through the opening holes. And you know, I look at things differently than probably most viewers watching a golf tournament. I'm watching the caddy, I'm watching the player, I'm watching how they walk, I'm watching their pace and their processes. And, he was very consistent throughout that adversity. And I think that's what stood out for me.
so Mike and Chris, what are your thoughts on if there wasn't a rain delay? Like, if he physically couldn't be taken off the course and he physically changed his outfit and he all these little, again, reframes and cues of kind of starting again, what do you think the rain day delay did for him? And what do you think might have happened if that rain delay did not show?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I really, I think he was equipped with the resources and tools to be able to manage that if the rain delay didn't happen. And I think he certainly did what he did during the rain delay, but I think he probably had a plan to maybe kind of reset or reframe his process, even if he would have stayed on the golf course. Even during the rain, you kind of look at his mannerisms during the showers, and of course, I was fortunate enough to be up there on Wednesday, and it didn't rain on Wednesday, but knowing that golf course well, it literally could be raining on one side of the Pennsylvania Turnpike and not over there on 14, 15, or 17, even though it's really only just a mile and a half or 2 miles away. And the element of surprise and how you kind of perceive that was really interesting. And I think he had the resources. I think he had a plan in place to be able to reset, or at least step back and be more patient and stick to the process of everything he had done leading up to the event in preparation. and knowing that he was going to execute his game plan regardless of how it played out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And the terrible part is I had money on Sam Burns. I bet him before the event, and I was feeling real good until about 6 holes left, and I was like, "Oh," but oh well, it's all good. No, I think I thought it was again to me, with golf coverage and all, it was hilarious, right? They show him. He basically went into exile for about 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and all of a sudden he's back on the screen. And then he was just doing things that you don't think of people doing, like making birdie on the last 2 holes and draining, whatever that thing was, like a 60-foot putt, like just, you know. And then, the commentators and all, and people were going, Hovland had the same putt. He should have chipped it. So he couldn't get the read. And I'm just sitting going, man, y'all are weird. like, like Hovland is not thinking about, I do not need to show him read. Like Hovland is trying to make birdie on his own ball. I don't know at all. That's just fans being fans. But if you think of higher handicaps, people that have not trained as much or have not thought of ways to do this, what would be some tricks on the golf course for a high handicapper that could help them break that I'm in that bogey train, and how can I get out of that? And who wants to jump in on that one? Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. How about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, I would kind of put it in the perspective of the player, and I have a lot of discussions about this with different amateur players and club players, and I ask them a lot when we talk about, well, okay, you made double bogey, like let's talk about that particular hole and that shot that you hit off the tee, and then okay, it was a little bit out of position. We potentially could have had an opportunity to punch out, but we took a more aggressive line. And my question is, well, why did you try and take that line? Why? What made you feel convinced that you had um, that was the right idea, but it didn't work out? And they said, well, you know, I find it often that I try to hit shots that I'm not good enough to hit. And I said, well, there's your light bulb right there. It's just you got to be patient. You have to understand that you still have multiple shots to get it on the green in three to give yourself an opportunity to putt for par. So when you look at that through the lens of I try to hit shots that I'm not, skillful enough to hit, how can you take a step back and recognize that opportunity or that situation before you actually hit the shot? You have to be able to assess and be aware of what situation you're in so you can optimize your scoring potential.
No, that makes perfect sense. I know collegiately, kind of my go-to is if we're in the thick of it, we're in the battle, and we had a player not playing well. Uh, Basically, we would just come up with, okay, you have 6 holes left. We're gonna break this into 2 3 hole tournament. Like it's a front nine, back nine, 3 holes. Right? You're gonna play 3 holes. We're gonna set a target goal, and we're gonna go chase it. And then we're going to finish that front nine, and then we have 3 more holes. That's our back nine. We're going to chase those 3 holes, and we're going to go finish. And then I thought by reframing, like all hell's breaking loose, my tournament's over. We're just giving them that secondary goal of, hey, we have 3 holes. Can we go 1 under? And then that's our front nine, and then we're going to play the back nine. We have 3 more holes. Can we go 2 under? And then all of a sudden you put 2 under or 3 under on the board, and you had a bad day, and now 78 becomes 75. Dinner tastes a little bit better. You're not as grumpy. So I think a lot of times too, just being able to reframe and say, all right, that's done. I can't fix that. I've I've bloody butchered it, but I do have 6 holes left. What can I do in the next 6 holes to build for tomorrow or to get ready or like that? So I think so. A lot of my players, we would do just fun games. Change it. It's a game now. Like, what can we do to get you out of whatever mindset you're in that has put us in this position, and see if we can get you to do something a little bit different. And I had a lot of success with that with a lot of players, at least to right the ship, because again, it got them out of, or Mike talked about, instead of that reframing and getting better, they were in that empathy or that I've given up, the complacency part that I just hate as a coach. I'd rather you yell and scream at me and blame me and yell and whatever, but you walk up on a player that's just like kind of quit. I mean, trying to get them to play differently is a challenge. So what would you do if you were a coach or a parent and you have a son or daughter out there that's kind of teetering on Wally's me, and it's just not my day. Like, what would be some things that you could kind of give them some tricks to try to get them out of that mindset? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people think about performance on the golf course and how much life affects that. Like, I got in a fight with my wife before I left because I've been playing too much golf. I, you know, the car just broke down and I don't have the money to pay for it, but I'm just gonna go play a quick nine with my buddy. Like, what, so we always talked about, in golf, life had to be in order for you to have a chance to play well. If you're if it's crazy going on behind the scenes, some people can overcome that, but that a lot of times that finds its way into your round at one point. And then once it kind of bores its way in, it just doesn't go away. So Chris, have you have any good stories on that? I got lots. College golf, I got lots. Especially women's college golf. Woo! I got stories. Yeah, 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 yeah. We call those carnivorous parents. They'd eat their kids. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't blame you. I bet. Yet. But it doesn't matter. All right, Chris, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, it really is. It's an interesting situation and relationship. There are a lot of dynamics that go along with this. I think that you know the relationship, the conversations, whether they're traveling and are in a hotel room and they're on their way to the golf course before, or they're driving up the morning of, or even more so, after the round when we all get in the car and we leave to go back to home or the hotel or whatever it might be. I think a lot of those conversations have an influence on behavior. They have a lot of influence on attitude, and it can be both from the perspective of the parent and the child. Obviously, the kid wants to do well, and they're always trying. I haven't met a young junior that didn't give 100% every time they go to try and tee it up. And all of them do it for different reasons and have different motives and have different goals for different reasons. However, I think it's the interaction between parent and child or guardian and child or whoever it might be, um, pre-event, post-event, and I would even elaborate on during the event. I go to a lot of events. I see a lot of different behaviors from um, players and parents as they're walking, where they walk, how they walk, on their phone, not on their phone. It's just an interesting dynamic that influences the perception or perspective of the player as well as the
Yeah.
parent. And then, post round, that kind of, or pre round the next day may have an influence on behavior. So there's a very deep dynamic to uncovering kind of performance under those guidelines, and being able to manage those helps players at all levels.
We did a study with, it was one of the women's teams that we used to work with back in the day, and they had a All-American. And when she played without her parents there versus when her dad was there, it was almost 2.5 shots. So she was 2.5 shots worse round when dad was there opposed to when dad wasn't. And dad never believed he was an issue. It wasn't us, but it was a team that we consulted with. And it was the numbers were staggering. I mean, you would literally, we'd go through the numbers and be like, dad was in town, wasn't he? And they're like, but then as a golf coach, like, what are we going to do? Tell dad not to show up? So that's that component of it. So I think I kind of like what you said, Mike. It is the parents play such a role in that component. Like we would have parents that were watching live scoring on the internet. So like hole one par, hole two bogey, hole three birdie, but no context, right? Zero context, just scores. And players would come off the green. Parents would literally call them and chastise them for certain holes. And you're like, there is zero context. Maybe they did make double, but maybe it was the best double on human history. Like there's no way they should have made double. But so that concept, and again, I think for a lot of parents and kind of outside noise of just, it for a lot of our players, it was really hard. I know one of our players, because the dad was so negative on the phone, we would say every time he said something negative, you would have to come back with two positives. So dad was like, I can't believe you made triple on 7. Well, dad, I made a really good up and down on 9, and I made a great birdie putt on 13. Like, so their entire conversation was dad was ripping, and then we would force that player to come in with positive, saying, here's the good things I did in the round that you did not see. Kind of trying to get, that was our way of trying to curb the dad's effect on our player. And we had interventions with a lot of a lot of parents, but again, that that is a hard piece. And a lot of these parents, you think about it, they spent tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their athlete in Division I college, trying to get them to go somewhere. So there was a lot of investment and time. And so there's again, when you're dealing with parents as a collegiate or a high school coach or any type of coach, there's a lot more than just how they're playing today. I mean, and then again, the projection forward. So if you were Mike, what would you tell coaches to do if they had a parent that was just a little much? That's true. Yeah. 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 That's true. Yeah. 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 That's fair. Uh, Chris, any thoughts on that or any experiences with that?
No, I think Mike did a great job kind of going through that. There's certainly um, a lot of different aspects to that. So every situation's unique. Um, just in my experience with whether it's junior players or collegiate players, and I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had some of the doozies. I've had some interesting ones, um, but the motivation of the parents kind of plays a role. Kind of what they um, feel that they're trying to achieve, whether it's through the players performance or you know AJGA stars or whatever it might be criteria. Um, there's so many influences in their time investment. Um, in the end, it really is in the best interest of the player, um, and honestly, both parties, both the player and the parent, want su- to be successful, and I think that's where it kind of gets lost is in that view of they want to be successful, and they just have some
Yeah.
difference of opinion on how they want to achieve that.
I'll never forget. I used to have one parent that would be like, "I can't believe so and so just went out of bounds again," and I'm like, "Do you think they meant to go out of bounds?" I said, "Did they like stare at you, tee up the ball, and go?" watch this. Now I'm going to hit it in the parking lot. I go, probably not. If so, we got an issue at that point. But that kind of, I can't believe they did this. I'm like, I know their game plan. I know that wasn't part of the game plan. I go, so I think a lot of times too, it's just, yeah, it's the irrational effect of watching your son or daughter play, or as a coach having a really good team and having that day or two where a player, and again, not too many players are going to try to stick it to the coach that way or to the parent that way by saying, "Ah, watch this." You think so? I think again, a lot of times too is that turbulence in the background, like Mike, you nailed it. It's that relationship is needs to be fixed before it ever kind of works its way through all the way into the golf again. But that's kind of a weird tangent. I don't know how we ended up there. Let's talk about Tommy Fleetwood. I thought, what a great couple weeks of golf. Like to go from the Open to the Travelers. And again, Keegan Bradley, he loves the Travelers. So you kind of had a feeling that he was going to be in the mix at the end. What were y'all's thoughts on Tommy and never winning on the PGA Tour, which floored me? I thought he's won on the DP Tour, the European Tour, been a hell of a Ryder Cup player, but has never won on the US Tour, which I thought was interesting. What were kind of your thoughts, and what the heck happened? Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, I reflect back. I was watching Tommy on the 18th green when Keegan made that putt, and Tommy had his kind of head in the crook of his, elbow, and it was emotional. It meant a lot. He had really put a lot of value on this. He knew at that point that it had kind of slipped away. Um, it was quite interesting. I'm not sure he was quite prepared for how that kind of evolved. Honestly, I
Yeah.
don't think he was ready for, or maybe, you think a player at that level would have the tools and resources to be able to manage, or at least have some resources to manage it. Um, and I think what kind of started that spiral was that putt he missed. I'll never know whether he felt like he had a good putt or whether he misread it, or what the situation was. But I think that kind of started the doubt train, honestly.
Yeah. I went all the way back to I went to 15. I actually watched the end of it. I don't watch much golf, but I flipped it on, and 15 was a drivable par 4. He went birdie, eagle, birdie, and then he bailed out way right and took like the ultra safe, took birdie out of play by his tee shot, made it a straight up par hole. And I'm just sitting there going, what? There ain't no damn way Scotty Scheffler's not going for that. Like Rory McIlroy is going for that. I'm like, wait a minute. Like literally my like spidey senses went rut-row. Like this is a guy like kind of holding on opposed to playing, And again, if he wouldn't have gone birdie, eagle, birdie, like going for the green 3 days in a row, like I was like, rut-row, this is different. So I think that again, I don't know. I love Tommy Fleetwood. I'm a huge Tommy. I literally love Tommy Fleetwood. When I worked for another organization, he would comment on us and talk to us all the time. Good dude. I love Tommy Fleetwood, but that surprised me. Like 15 into 16, a missed putt, and then 18 switching clubs in the fairway. Again, I don't know what the wind was. I don't know the lie. I don't know any of that circumstances. But to go down to a wedge, it just seems to me, as the armchair quarterback, all hell was starting to unravel, and he was unable to stop it. What did you see, Mike? I tried to find his routine, and I could not find it anywhere on the internet. Yeah. 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 That's right. You wanna get the hell out of there. You're in fear mode. Yeah, you're in fear mode. I wanna get out of here. I don't wanna take the time. I think again, and even the guys in the commentary booth on 18 when he had the long putt, they're like, "That was fast." Like, he moved at a much higher, like, didn't do what he was doing most of the days. Even the commentary guys were like, "Well, that was different." On their phone, someone on their phone has it out there. Yeah, 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 yep, yeah, 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 yeah. You don't have that dog in you. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, definitely. Not at all. Yeah. Yeah. And Tommy's such a good short game and putter. Like for that piece to kind of like to kind of bottom out on him, it was like, whoa. Like, you know, that was the hard part to watch because he's really good on the greens. He's really good. But yeah. Nah, but it's absolutely it was a fat again, the US Open was fascinating. It was a bludgeoning, ugly, probably a little too bludgeoned. Um, and then I think the Travelers was the exact opposite, right? People are making birdies. You know, Keegan is starting to apply pressure with 4 or 5 holes left, starting to say, "All right, I'm down 2 with 4 to go." You know, Tommy let me slide on a hole there. Like you could kind of see the momentum. The crowd, of course, was totally behind Keegan. That's kind of like his event. So you could just feel, you know, always sports, there's momentum. There's always these pieces moving, and you could feel the momentum moving away from Tommy and definitely in Keegan's, you know, but again, now Tommy did a couple things to open the door, but you could kind of get that sense in sports sometimes where that emotion is just moving the other way. And to be able to shut that down again, I think you got to have a little of that dog in you. You've got to be able to look at the guy across from you and go, no, no, you are finishing second today. Like this is not an option. Like, you know, and I think the greats do that. The greats look across, you know, like Tiger's like literally staring through your soul and going, yeah, no, son, it ain't happening today. Like that component. So I thought it was really fascinating, a really good sports moment. Terrible sports moment for Tommy Fleetwood, but a really good sports moment and kind of watching all that kind of go down. But it was really hard to watch because again, I think he's a, you know, I think he will get one. He's too good of a player not to. But again, it's just it was a tough one to watch. Um, yeah, no. I was gonna ask Chris if you had a player that came to you and you know, but I just you know, I'm in the Eastern, I'm playing the Western, I'm in, you know, the state championship. I had it locked up, coach, and then it got away from me. What would you go? What would you tell your player?
I think it'd be a great conversation, to be honest.
Yeah.
I
One
like,
they reflected to ask that question would be cool, but no, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I love reflection. I love journaling. I think it's really important for players to journal, um, especially because you start to see some patterns and some thoughts and some experiences, and then we get a better library of things that we can start to manage.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I've had more players lose or finish second than win. I've had more players fail trying to make it on tour than actually get there and get their cards for multiple tours, whether it's you know, Futures or LPGA or Epson, um, you know, PGA Tour Americas, Corn Ferry, you name it. It's hard. It really is
It is
hard.
very hard.
It's an experience that is unlike any other from a playing perspective. Um, so there's failure, and failure is part of the process. But if you understand as a player how to use the learning experience of failure and apply it to your process, apply it to your data, apply it to your processes as far as mental, physical, um, and the emotional parts of your game, then it can be very beneficial and it makes you stronger for future events. So the conversations that we work through after an event or after a failure or um, you know, losing a situation or a tournament like Tommy did or like a player would do at the Western, Southern, Eastern, it doesn't matter which one it is. They all hurt.
Yeah.
They're all an experience that, are part of preparing you to have more tools in your toolbox, more resources for you to be prepared to win the event when it's even tougher the next time. And that's what I try to help players understand.
Yeah. I think the part too people don't understand, especially at the tour level, 10% win. That's it. Uh, of all the tours all around the world, basically 10% of the tour actually wins an event during their career. That's it. And to win multiple events, you're a one percenter. I mean, it's, you get spoiled with a Rory or a Scotty or a Xander or a Tiger. Like those dudes are the exceptions to the rule. There's a lot of those guys out there. I think one of my favorites was what was that guy's name? I can't think of it right now. He was a journeyman forever. I think he's on the Live Tour now, but I think he finally won an event after like 20 years on tour. He finally wins an event, but was in it but made his card, made a great living. But it's hard to win, and that's the part of golf that I think a lot of people who watch other sports don't understand. Because when you tee it up, it's 1 versus 150, right? You can finish second, means you just beat 148 people, but you didn't win though. Or even worst case, you lose in a playoff. So technically you didn't lose. You tied for the lead. You're in a 3-hole or 1-hole sudden death shootout. You didn't technically lose, but you still didn't win. I mean, golf is brutal. Golf is brutal. Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, they're just kind of they're just one of the guys in the field. It's like what was it, the Generals that played the Harlem Globetrotters all the time. Like good basketball players, but they're just out there. There's a lot of guys and gals that play a lot of tours that make a very good living, but they don't win either. And I think that the whole concept of golf, it's a hard game, and it's a really hard game to win at that level. At that level, you can even think about you playing with your buddies. Like, there's probably that one guy that you can never beat, and man, when I'm in that contention to beat him, how do I react? I'm not, I'm not Tiger Woods, but I'm up one with 3 to go. How am I going to react when this guy's got my number? I think a lot of times, so a lot of these same feelings that you go through with your weekend group or the gang you play with, these are the same feelings and the same components that they're going for. They're just playing for a couple $1,000,000. Makes it a little more challenging. It makes it a little more challenging. But all right, gentlemen, we're hitting about an hour. So, Mike, you want to wrap it up with any deep thoughts or where they can find you or anything exciting like that? That's fair. They were thoughts. Sweet. Chris, how about yourself? Anything exciting going on?
Uh, you can find me at chrisgeorgegolf.com. And I certainly would, if Fleetwood's in the open over there, um, I certainly would keep an eye on him because there's a bit of motivation there. And I sure hope that Rory pulls it off in Northern Ireland this year for the Open Championship. So we'll see how it works out.
I do I do give Fleetwood some credit. He went on stage, took questions. Like here it is. There's other people, name might have just been mentioned, that has been hiding because of a driver controversy, which everybody drivers gets tested. I don't know what the heck's going on. But I'm just saying, Tommy, being a class act, sat in front of it, took questions, said, "Hey, here's what happened. So be it." So I thought, again, class act. Tommy Fleetwood. So, Golfcast, you can find us at Golfcast. It's all over the place. Go to Google, search it. We're there for you. So, gentlemen, we'll see you guys again in a month. And if you have any questions or anything that you want me to reach out and ask the guys as well, I will be more than happy to do that for you. So, thank you again for joining us. And we will, oh God, somebody actually asked a question, not paying attention. Oh, my bad. Let me see if I can open this up. I can't. I don't know. I'll find the question and I'll send it to Mike or Chris and get them to elaborate upon it. I don't know why it should be opening up, but there's actually 3 questions sitting there and I totally ignored them. So my bad. But again, get what you pay for. All right, gentlemen. You guys have a good night. Bye. All right.